Hello, everyone. This is Rick with a Cyber Pro podcast. Industry leaders share their insights. 5 questions in about 9 minutes because hackers never sleep. Let's get to it. Question number 1. Mike, who are you and what do you do?
Hello. Yes, my name is Mike Curnow. I'm the husband to my amazing wife, the daddy to my adorable kids, personal exercise and the food service provider to my cats and dogs, and that weird neighbor that tells you to remove your labels on your shipping packages when you toss them out. So during the day, I'm an industrial control system cybersecurity operations architect, and it sounds like a bit of a mouthful, but it's essentially I work on creating cybersecurity architecture for projects that are in the critical infrastructure and civil engineering space. And at night, I'm Batman. No, I'm kidding. But even better than Batman, I do have an S corp that I run, Defiant Networks Incorporated. We have built an entirely new suite of internet networking protocols, and we're working to create the next generation of internet. Besides that, I write white papers, technical papers. I do some public speaking sometimes. Not as much in the past couple of years, not just because the whole situation going on, but I've been working on different projects that, more like long-term stuff. I guess I like to refer to myself as someone who's a professional, like outsider, like odd man out kind of thing. I don't necessarily stick in one space or community or something, but I kind of move around trying to solve problems in different areas. And if what I have is good enough, people take to it and disseminate it and talk about it. So, but yeah, that's kind of who I am in a nutshell.
And a whole lot of what you do, which is really cool. I love the fact that you're tackling something so simple as a new internet protocol. I mean, there's nothing big deal about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the way that things work now, a lot of things aren't bad, but are done poorly. And so what we've built is a way to not reinvent the wheel, but ensure that zero trust networking at every single point of contact is built in right from the get-go. Yeah, it's an undertaking, and it's probably the best thing I've ever worked on.
That's awesome. Why do you love being a cyber professional?
So the first thing I would say on that is I like, not really as much for like industry or career reasons or anything like that, but the fact that I've got skill set, expertise, know-how, and experience to have a direct hand in keeping the system safe that my family's going to use. I think on my LinkedIn profile, I'd say something like, I do this so that my kids don't get squished. I think that is, for me, that's the main impetus in what I do and the main driver. But a lot of really awesome things come from that, though, too, in the interim, because secondly, I have a hard time trying to name really many other fields that have such a collection of like aha epiphany moments as you do in technology and cybersecurity. I mean, if you know how, you can literally make your own stuff, whether it be, like tool sets that you use, or it be just more secure means of communication, or even just ideas for new technical specifications and standards, and integrating things that already work with each other. I mean, there's really no shortage of, use the term technical revelations, I guess, right? Just these things that when they fall into place, by your doing, the discovery process there, it's immensely gratifying. And I think it's motivating to want to keep pushing and doing more. Because I mean, the way I see it is that right now we all stand atop of giants, and generations on, we'll be the giants that others stand on, right? So It's an amazing field with many disciplines and subdisciplines, and they have their own multiplicity of disciplines and subdisciplines. And it's not linear. You can't get bored here. That's yeah.
That's a good way to put it, and that's a good segue because we kind of chatted about this a little bit beforehand. The world is not bored with cybersecurity, and so we see this push, this conversation about cybersecurity as a top concern. But what does that actually mean to you?
So what does that mean to me? I think that it's going to depend on who's saying it, but I think hearing that, when someone says that, I think saying that now, they might be a little bit behind the game, I think. Not true for everyone, but I think to paint a broad brushstroke, it's not too inaccurate because cybersecurity's been a top concern for a long time. It's just the degree in which you address it and apply measures to reduce, mitigate, and prevent these kinds of exposures and vulnerabilities. I think that is something that's now being caught up on, especially in the past couple of years with migrating from a lot of work from home, opening up a lot more connections to the crown jewels of an organization, and also into the critical infrastructure space. We've seen a lot of operational technology, cyber physical systems, things that have agency in the Euclidean 3D meat space that we all live in, just kind of going to crap, or even just little instances like attacking a business network can shut down the critical functions of a manufacturing plant or a pipeline or a water treatment facility, right? I'm gonna use the buzzwords that the things that have happened recently, the past 1.5 years or so. So I think we're seeing a kind of, with that question posed, I think the reason it's so big now is because there's been kind of a gross negligence to address these in the past. And what we're seeing is an over compensatory means to bring people in and be like, hey, look, we're addressing this now. We're doing this now. Maybe we didn't always do it, but we're doing it now. And yeah, I think that's pretty much what that means to me when I hear it. It's good. I can't knock anyone for talking about it, but why now and why not 4 years ago, or 5 years ago? Random numbers. Sometime before 2 years ago.
Fair enough. Before the time that didn't happen, right? Before the pandemic. Mike, talk to me about some insights that you'd like to share with our community of cyber professionals.
I've got a few here. Well, not a few. I've got 4 here. So the first one is when I had people working under me at previous positions, and even now, I like to preach this idea of always thinking a little bit bigger, and not really so much like dress for the job you want to have kind of thing, but more so the sphere that you're in now. Be aware of the stuff that's around it, right? It's like in the military, there's the concept of always be aware of your 5s and 25s, right? The closest 5 meters within you, that's going to be your job set, the things relevant to your trade craft in a skill sense and the responsibility sense, and your 25s are the things that are a bit more long distance, but they are still going to affect the immediate stuff you do. So like, for example, if this can apply, I think, really to anything, but I have here, if you were a cybersecurity engineer, an automotive cybersecurity engineer, you're working for an OEM, you're typically looking at the vehicle as a whole, you're looking at the CAN bus network, the gateways and segmentations and keeping up with the different secure development standards, stuff like that. But then also you can say, also be aware of the supply chain, the things that go in the car, how those parts are derived, what kind of standards those have to adhere to. The automotive space is kind of unique in the fact that most OEMs aren't always going to be doing the same thing. Rarely are, or they are, but they're doing it in different ways. But I mean, you can apply that to anything. Like if you're working in a security operations center, you know, if you're an analyst who's working either triaging or handling triaged events, maybe it would help to also know what your you know, threat intel specialist does, what your SOC engineers do, because that can help you understand certain contexts. That can help you understand things from a technical perspective on how to properly, you know, create new queries and mappings and things like that. Always just, you know, I think expand just a little bit outside of what you do, because that's always going to help you understand the implications of what your wheelhouse is, or what's in your wheelhouse, I should say. Second off, yes, cybersecurity is way more than just red team and blue team. So it's not like the Rooster Teeth production, red versus blue, right? The field itself does have a plethora of subfields with their own disciplines inside, and it's anemic, amorphic, ever evolving, expanding based on the new kinds of technologies and you know, functional necessity out there, right? So yeah, don't be afraid to step outside of your domains every now and again and kind of see what other areas are doing. I almost said see what the other side is doing, but that would be antithetical to my earlier statement about false dichotomies. It's more of just a big blob with mini blobs inside of it. If you Google cybersecurity domain map, there's a really great graphical representation of this, covering all the different areas, governance, education, security, operations, architecture, assessment, things like that. And even that's not the whole picture. It's a really great picture, but even those things have things evolving inside of them. Third thing is notes. Take friggin' notes on every single thing you do. I personally like to use Obsidian or MS OneNote, depending on what work I'm doing. Write down every single thing you do, who you meet with, what standards you look up, because you never know when you're going to actually need that. A little while ago, there was a requirement I had to meet regarding talking about like all the pen tests I've done, or the majority of them, and it took me a while because I had to reach out to like 3 or 4 different companies to make sure I had all the right info down, and that wasn't fun. So I now have that noted somewhere. Yeah, you have no idea. You have no idea when you're going to need something. And the last thing I would say for this is an acronym that I like to call RTFS, which is read the friggin' standards. I think, and not even just like security, like, you know, NIST or whatever industry standards that you know, you may, whoever's listening, may have to adhere to, but also technical documentation, specifications, developer documentation. Like there was a while ago where I was leading a pen test for a financial automation platform, right? Like a fintech platform. And I say leading, I was more of the manager of that effort, and the lead pen tester on that. I let them know that, like, hey, I found this port with this funny XML input. Why don't you look into it? Because he was looking at something else at the time. And it's like, I can't find any vulnerabilities on this. There's no CVs. I don't know what this is. And then I went, oh, let me just look to see what friggin' software it is. And so I figured out that it was basically just a big batch processor that used XML input. And I read the developer documentation and was able to actually create a batch process to, you know, this is a dev environment, right? So I couldn't really send myself any money, but just create, fake jobs to send me money at certain intervals. And that was just because I wasn't looking at it from a security perspective at first. Like being an ex-developer, I'd look at the developer documents too, to kind of, join the two, right? So yeah, read the standards, whatever you're working on. Don't just look at it from a security side. Try and look at it from a first principle side. like learn some of the core components of what that thing is, and then you ought to be able to use that information to supplement your task set, what you have to do with it. Yeah, I think that's really it. I had this whole thing about cell networking I was going to get into, but that's a whole mouthful.
We could come back to that one on another podcast and jump into that. Mike, want to finish with a fun question for you. What's your favorite piece of retro technology that makes you smile?
So for me, a lot of things that have that are from the 80s or have 80s aesthetic to it is typically, I know it's not a particular item, but I just have this weird nostalgia for a time I never experienced, but has influenced so much of what I do now. If I were to pick a particular item, which I think this could be considered retro now, just because it's 2022, the Game Boy Advance, because I remember so many nights where we would take, family vacations from, where we lived in New England down south here, and I would be playing Pokemon Blue, and I'd have to wait till I hit every street light to see what I was doing, right? And I think there was something about that built character in a way, and patience in a way that we don't see now. So I think I would say the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Those are the two things I think had a, kind of this random effect on how I do some stuff.
Awesome. Mike, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was awesome to have you.
Yeah, it was good being here. I appreciate your time, and hopefully, something I said is of value and help someone. So
awesome. You did it. You made it to the end. Thanks for watching the Cyber Pro podcast. Check us out for more content.